Hi guys, so this is video 2 in my Painting My Tibby Kit video series, and today I will be painting the capillaries, probably as well doing mottling and some blushing, or some different washes which are pink or a red color. So the first thing I'm going to do is make capillaries. So I'm going to take my Genesis lip blush and nail color. Get my odorless thinner. I'm only going to mix up a little bit of this color. I don't need much. I'm also going to make a fair amount of a blush color. I'll probably do that a little later. I'm just going to add my odorless thinner to my palette now, so I don't have to do it then. So now that I have my odorless thinner, I'm going to add a little bit of my lip blush paint, not a ton. As with other colors, this is very pigmented. Don't want it to be too dark. And it's already looking to me like it's headed in that direction. So I'm going to wipe off my brush. Continue to mix. And I want it to have a tinge of a purple color, almost a plum. So I'm going to get my eyelid purple. This is another pre-mixed paint color by Bountiful Baby. I'm going to mix that in with my lip blush. It's a burgundy. It's pretty dark, but I think if I add a little more thinner, it'll be correct. Capillaries are similar to veins as far as location goes, but I'm going to make them this plum color. And I would probably also try to make them a bit thinner. Set up. I'm first going to do it on her head. But I'm going to try my paint. I'm not sure how this will work. So this is actually a test blend. It's third quality from Mottling Baby. I'm just going to get my liner brush and test my color. And it looks good. So go ahead with that. And I'm going to go along her temple, both of her temples actually, and not do a ton, but they will be faint, hopefully, and just very lightly. Actually just did a bit much. And wipe that off with a clean sponge. I don't want my paint to run. I'm actually going to drag, I just dragged some of my paint out onto the top of my pot instead of the well, because what just happened was that my paint ran a little bit and I didn't get a thin line, which in this instant is not something I want. So now I'm doing very thin lines, thinner than my veins, and I'm drawing them just along the forehead and making them very spiderwebbish. And them close together. Not too much. I want them to be slightly visible, but just enough so that it adds some depth. Everything I do is to add depth to the skin. Might pop a little excess again. I want my details to be very faint. I don't know if you can even see. Probably not. Try this for a second, see if it helps. Not much. I mean, that just adds a glare. Very, very faint lines right in this area. They're very, very light. Probably add more pigment, but I really don't want them to be very visible. I primarily just don't want the vinyl to look flat. I want it to look alive, have a 3D effect. That's where all of this is motivated from. I want it to look accurate, and I want it to look like this in depth to the skin. I'm only going to put these on the temples. So a smaller baby, I would either not do these, do them on the eyelids, or do them on the feet as well. And it's really up to personal preference. I don't typically do capillaries. I haven't on my tinier babies. I thought they would look really good with this Tibi kit. And so far, I think I'm right about that. As these do add quite a bit of depth already. Right now they look like they kind of stand out, but that is fine at this stage because later things will really start to blend and look nice. They are starting to get a little bit darker, but I want them to stand out even a little bit more. I think this will be the last coat. I think I need to start adding some music or something to these videos. I don't know. They're a little dark. I don't think they're too much. And bring these into down near her eye a little more. And I think I'll even bring some on this side a little farther over. Those are pretty obvious now. It will be covered by her hair quite a bit, but maybe even a little more obvious in the wings. Now that they're still difficult to see on this side as well. Not super obvious. I think this side May even blot just a little bit, which won't do a ton, but I'll take any excess paint off for me. These lines are very thin. I think while I'm at this, I wasn't intending to do this. I think while I'm at it, I'll add a little more blue and green to my previous veins. Maybe just in the center. There are parts where it's a little splotchy. I'm going to keep this part pretty thin because they don't necessarily need more pigment. There we go. That's a little better than me. I'm mainly just adding green over the blue. I'm going to add a few very light capillaries. It's just little tiny squiggles on the cheeks. Which might not even be visible. Not at first glance anyway. I don't want them to be. I just want them to add depth, which I've said so many times now. But it's true. And I'm literally just doing little squiggly lines. Almost like little S's. I just want them to partially show up. There we go. So that's her head. Head is now done. I'm going to add some more of the capillaries to the palm of her hand. Her hands. I'm going to draw them going up on the veins. Because if you look at your own hands, probably notice that you can see some capillaries. I don't want her hands to look flat. I've seen that quite a bit. And I want them to look like they have depth like the rest of her. And I don't want that to be only in the form of blushing. Because you want it to look like there's actually blood flowing under the skin. I want these to be super, super light. So that's why I'm blotting them so much. So don't want her hands to necessarily look purple. Maybe I'm going to draw just a couple of lines coming out from the vein. That's probably good. Next hand. These lines I'm drawing are thinner than most people's pencil lines. Almost as if I was painting hair. I want them to be so light and so thin. Now, how light you do your capillaries, it's really up to your interpretation if you're an artist. Even if you're a new artist, it's still up to you. That is part of the fun of making your own dolls. It's all about individuality. I need to check. Since they're about the same, I'm going to add a little bit more pigment to this one. This is the first one I did. You didn't see me switch the hands out. So I did some more veining on that hand than this hand. They don't have to be super similar. I want them to have a little bit of similarity. This is a doll, so I want it to be fairly consistent throughout the doll. That's looking a little better. Now I'm going to do the feet. And I previously drew the veins. I'm going to add little purple lines in between each vein on the arch of the foot. Take a look at these. I need to give it a second to try. No. It's almost like it could use a little bit of wadding. I'll be able to tell better. Maybe add a little more. Each time I go through, I try to go through a little bit thinner. So as I mentioned in the last video, I don't want to over thicken the lines, which is very easy to do. There's a little more. A little better. And back to the next foot. I go back and forth on these quite a bit. It's how you get perfection. It's harder to do this, but for me, because of how the vinyl has been squished. It's happened in transit, as I think I mentioned before. And it'll fix itself. And I fill it with beads. In the meantime, it's a little bit irritating. I could have had it returned if I had wanted to, but it's really not a problem. Especially since I will most likely be keeping this kit. I'm going to do the other side. I almost forgot. There we go. I wish this side had turned out as well as that side just did. I think it's really just being crushed a little bit. That should be all I need now. This one is looking really good. I don't think I need any more, but on this side I do. There we go. Check this out one last time, hopefully. This one is just not doing what I want it to. You don't particularly want to give up on it. That's not what you do as an artist. But it is not showing up the way I want it to. It's really not behaving how I would like it to. And go back through again. Never finish on a piece until you're happy with it. Because it does matter, and you'll regret it later. The paint is not cooperating the way I want it to. Which makes me wonder, there's something else wrong with this vinyl other than it being collapsed. Because it is not taking this paint the way I would like. Now it's showing up a little better. So I think it'll be fine. And no, I don't think it's going to get any better. Some of those capillaries are a little thick. You can't really tell. Still looks quite similar, which is good. Um, Stop blinding everyone. Now I'm going to do some modeling. For the modeling, I will be using the lip blush nail color as well, except I'm not going to add purple. Not going to make it too dark because she is not a little baby, and I want her to look her age. So I have a fairly dark red, but it's not as red as you might think. I'm also going to add Genesis 8. Well, Genesis Red 8. It's actually pink. Very obviously pink. It's a very pretty pink. I'm going to just add a tiny bit of this because it will make the color a little milkier. Make it blend in with my skin tone a little bit better. Now I am going to test this color first before I actually use it on the doll. I have two main modeling sponges that I use. I make these myself. They're just normal sponges. This is a porous sponge, and this is a more, like it's less porous. You can probably see a little bit. This one has smaller holes, this one has larger holes. I just make the holes by pulling pieces of the sponge out with tweezers. So, since this is a larger baby, I will probably be using my larger hole sponge, but I am going to test it by putting a little bit of my color on the piece of sponge, blotting it. It's always important to blot it. I'm testing the size and the color on my technique test rim. I'm also checking how hard I need to press to get a good defined color. And I don't particularly like the way this looks for this particular doll, which is why I tested. It's very important. I'm going to try this other one. I feel like that looks a bit too blotchy. Blotting this one as well. And that looks better. I don't know if you can tell. This is where I did the second one. This is where I did the first one. It's not super obvious. The color is pretty good. I don't think I'll have to go in again. And it won't make her too splotchy, I don't think. I'm going to turn over my towel. This is why I double it up so much. Have kind of a clean side, and I'll be able to tell exactly if my color changes at all in the process. I'm going to add more to my sponge, blot it. Looks good. So I'm actually going to start on my arms because as I go along, I'm more likely to have a darker pigment to my paint mixture. I'm going to lightly pounce this, make sure it's leaving the holes that my sponge creates. So it's a very, can't see anything with this camera. Hopefully you can see at least with the reflection some of the dots that are being created. And I am carefully placing this design, not going over spots. I'm going to start on the upper arm because to where I want the pigment to be darker, and a lot of times your sponge will start running out of paint before you realize it, and farther on the arm get darker when you add paint. It's complicated. And I'm going to add more color. And while I add more color, I'm going to pause this and do the rest of the limbs in the head in this modeling color. So I'm back, and I actually ended up doing 2 layers of modeling. The first one was pretty light, so I went back and did a darker layer by adding a little more pigment to my paint mixture. And that actually ended up being a bit dark, and so I went through with a cosmetic wedge, one of my sponges, and a little bit of paint thinner, and dabbed out some spots, but as always, difficult to see. The modeling turned out really nice. It's actually quite nice, super difficult to see, probably can see a little bit, but in person it is visible, but not too visible. So pretty good. All it's left to do with that step now is to heat set it, and then I will probably do 2 more layers of my flush 6 before I use 7 and 8. Probably use 6 with a little bit of 8 mixed in, and then blush over that next time. So I'm just going to cure this, heat set it, and then tomorrow I'll come back and do the next step. So thanks for watching. Luckily I made a slightly shorter video than last time. Bye.